My name is Amanda Cole. I served 12 years in the U.S. Army. 2 deployments to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan. I hold 3 commendation medals, a Purple Heart, and the distinct memory of what sand tastes like when it's mixed with diesel and adrenaline. I have seen war zones quieter than the courtroom was that Tuesday morning. The air conditioning hummed, a low, artificial drone that reminded me of the inside of a C-130 transport plane. My ex-husband, Michael, sat at the opposing table. He was surrounded by a phalanx of expensive lawyers, the kind who wore suits that cost more than a staff sergeant's annual salary. Michael leaned in toward his lead attorney, but he spoke loud enough for the room to hear. He wanted the judge to hear. "She's not capable of managing these assets," Michael said, his voice dripping with faux concern. "You have to understand, Your Honor. She's damaged goods. The Army broke her." I didn't flinch. I kept my hands folded on the mahogany table. My spine was straight, not rigid, but poised. I fixed my eyes on the judge's bench, refusing to give Michael the satisfaction of seeing his words land. Damaged goods. That was his favorite narrative. The broken soldier. The fragile wife. The woman who needed to be handled with kid gloves because her brain was rattled by too many explosions. It was a brilliant strategy. It allowed him to dismiss my questions as paranoia. It allowed him to frame my silence as depression. And today, he was using it to try and strip me of everything I had left. Michael smiled at me. It was a small, sad smile, the kind you give to a sick pet before you put it down. He thought he had already won. He thought I was the woman he had molded over the last 3 years. Quiet, compliant, and tired. He forgot where I came from. He forgot that in the Army, you don't just learn how to shoot. You learn how to wait. You learn how to let the enemy overextend himself. You learn that sometimes, to win the war, you have to let them think they've won the battle. There was a folder in my bag. But unlike the stacks of paperwork Michael's lawyers were shuffling, mine was thin. It contained a single document that I was prepared to sign. A document that Michael thought was his victory lap. He didn't know it was his death warrant. When I left the Army, I thought I was ready for peace. I had a plan. Go home, get married, build a life that didn't involve sleeping with a rifle within arm's reach. I traded my uniform for an apron, my combat boots for slippers, and told myself that silence was a luxury, not a threat. At first, it almost worked. Michael greeted me with flowers at the airport. He held my hand like it was something precious. He told me I was his hero, that I'd earned a rest. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. We moved into a quiet house in a suburb outside Nashville. It was beautiful. Wraparound porch, white shutters, a kitchen big enough for a squad. I thought I could get used to the rhythm of normal life, measuring days in meals and errands, instead of patrols and checkpoints. But normal started to feel like a cage dressed up as comfort. It didn't happen overnight. Control never does. It seeps in like water into a foundation, slow, invisible, until the cracks appear. It started with concern. "You look tired, babe," he'd say when I wanted to go out with friends. "Why don't you stay in? I'll pick up dinner." Then it became criticism masked as advice. "You're shouting," he'd say when I was speaking in a normal tone. "You're too aggressive. It scares people. You're not in the barracks anymore, Amanda." I started to shrink. I lowered my voice. I stopped arguing. I started second-guessing my own reactions. Was I too loud? Was I too intense? Maybe he was right. Maybe I was broken. I went from being a squad leader responsible for the lives of 10 soldiers to a woman who was afraid to park crooked in the driveway because Michael would sigh and ask if I was having a bad day. He isolated me. Slowly. Systematically. When my old unit buddies called, Michael would frown. "They just drag you back to the past," he'd say. "You need to move on. Focus on us." Eventually, the calls stopped coming. I became a ghost in my own house. I cleaned. I cooked. I waited for him to come home. And when he did, I was grateful for the scraps of attention he threw my way. "You wouldn't understand," he started saying whenever I asked about his work. "It's a complex business. You were, well, you were just a grunt, right? You took orders. I make deals. Just a grunt." He stripped away my rank. He stripped away my competence. He reduced 12 years of service to mindless labor. I missed the desert. I missed the heat. Out there, clarity was absolute. You knew who the enemy was. You knew who had your back. At home, the enemy slept in my bed, and I was too brainwashed to see it. I thought marriage would be a reward for survival. Instead, it felt like a demotion. But the thing about training is that it doesn't disappear. It just goes dormant. The soldier in me was asleep, sedated by gaslighting and doubt. But she wasn't dead. It was a Thursday afternoon in October when she woke up. Michael ran a company called Patriot Logistics Solutions. On paper, it was a government contractor that supplied non-lethal equipment, tents, water filtration, generators to military bases, and veteran disaster relief efforts. He framed himself as a patriot, a man making money while doing good. He had left his laptop open on the dining room table. He never password protected it at home. Why would he? I was just the damaged wife who barely knew how to use Excel. I walked past the screen to clear his coffee mug. I wasn't snooping. I didn't care about his business. But then I saw the number. 45,000,000 yuan. It was a wire transfer authorization. That wasn't unusual for a government contract. What was unusual was the recipient. Vanguard Consultancy, Cayman Islands. I stopped. The mug hovered in my hand. My brain, the part of me that used to analyze supply routes for IED risks, clicked on Cayman Islands. Patriot Logistics had a contract with Fort Campbell. Why were they sending $500,000 to an offshore consultancy firm? I put the mug down. I sat in the chair. I touched the trackpad. I scrolled up. There were dozens of them. Transfers. Monthly. Consistent. All going to shell companies with vague names. Blue Horizon. Apex Strategic. Vanguard. I opened his email. I searched for Vanguard. I found a thread with a man named Dravos. The language wasn't business formal. It was coded, but lazy. The shipment of filters for the 101st is marked as delivered. We need to move the surplus funds before the quarter audit. Route it through the usual channel. I froze. Marked as delivered. I knew what that meant. In logistics, if you mark something delivered that never arrived, you get paid by the government for phantom inventory. Michael wasn't just laundering money. He was stealing from the Department of Defense. He was charging the Army for equipment that soldiers never received. He was stealing from my people. I felt a cold sensation wash over me. It wasn't fear. It was a familiar, icy calm, the kind you feel when the first shot cracks the air, and you realize the ambush has started. I looked at the date of the emails. This had been going on for 2 years. The exact amount of time he had been telling me we needed to tighten our belts and that I needed to stop spending money on therapy. He was sitting on millions of stolen dollars, and he was gaslighting me into thinking I was a burden. I pulled out my phone. I didn't take photos. That was amateur. Photos could be challenged. I forwarded the emails to a dead drop account I hadn't used since basic training. I downloaded the financial spreadsheets onto a micro SD card I pulled from the hallway security camera. I wiped the sent folder. I cleared the browser history. I stood up. I picked up the coffee mug. When Michael came home that night, I kissed him on the cheek. I asked him how his day was. Exhausting. He sighed, loosening his tie. Cleaning up other people's messes. You're lucky you don't have to deal with the real world, Amanda. I smiled. I know, I said softly. Thank you for taking care of everything. He patted my head. Like a dog. Good girl, he said. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed next to him, listening to his breathing. He thought I was broken. He thought I was just a grunt. He thought I couldn't think. He was right about one thing. I was a grunt. And grunts are the ones who dig the holes you fall into. I didn't call a divorce lawyer. Not yet. I called Sergeant First Class David Taylor. Taylor was my old platoon sergeant. He had transitioned out of the infantry 5 years ago and into the Army CID, Criminal Investigation Division. He investigated major fraud and felony crimes involving the military. We met in a diner 3 towns over. I wore a hoodie and sunglasses. When I slid the SD card across the table, Taylor looked at me. He saw the circles under my eyes. He saw the way I checked the exits. "You okay, Cole?" he asked. "I will be," I said. "Look at the files." Taylor plugged the card into his laptop. He scanned the spreadsheets. He read the emails. His face went hard. "This is bad, Amanda," he said low. "He's billing for Tier 1 filtration systems and delivering nothing, or cheap knockoffs. We've had reports of water quality issues at 3 bases. This might be why." He looked up at me. "This is major fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy against the United States government. We're talking 20 years in Leavenworth. Minimum." "I know," I said. "I can bring him in now," Taylor said, reaching for his phone. "I have enough for a warrant." I put my hand on his arm. "No," Taylor frowned. "Why?" "He's stealing millions." "It's no demand. Because if you arrest him now, he'll blame it on his partners," I said. "Or worse, he'll blame it on me. My name is on the joint accounts where the money passes through before it goes offshore. He set it up that way. He's been gaslighting me for years, Taylor. He'll tell the court I'm the unstable wife who handled the books while he was busy working." I took a breath. "He's painted me as damaged goods to everyone we know. His lawyer will use that. They'll say I was confused or that I orchestrated it. I need him to claim the money. I need him to fight for it." Taylor studied me. He saw the tactical shift in my eyes. "You want to trap him," Taylor said. "I want to run a PISOP," I corrected. "How?" "We're getting divorced," I said. "He filed last week. He wants to give me nothing. He wants to prove I'm incompetent, so he can keep all the assets, including the accounts where the stolen money is hidden." I leaned in. "I'm going to let him." Taylor raised an eyebrow. "You're going to let him keep the stolen money?" "I'm going to let him legally declare in front of a judge that those accounts are 100% his sole property and that I have had zero access or knowledge of them. I'm going to make him sign a sworn affidavit that he is the brilliant mastermind behind Patriot Logistics." A slow smile spread across Taylor's face. "And once he signs that," Taylor whispered, "he hangs himself," I finished. "He removes my liability and admits to the crime in the same signature." Taylor closed the laptop. "Operation Truth," he said. "I'll have a team ready at the courthouse. You just get him to sign." The weeks leading up to the trial were a masterclass in submission. I played the role Michael wanted. I cried. I begged. I acted confused during the deposition. I let his lawyer scream at me. Michael ate it up. He told his friends I was falling apart. He told his mother I was a charity case. He got greedy. Initially, his lawyer suggested a small settlement just to make me go away. But Michael refused. He wanted to punish me. He wanted to leave me with absolutely nothing. "She doesn't deserve a dime of my hard work," Michael told his lawyer. "I want full ownership of the business, the house, and all investment accounts." Perfect. Which brings us back to the courtroom. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Raymond, looked over her glasses at me. "Mrs. Cole," she said, "your husband's counsel is proposing a settlement that leaves you with virtually nothing. No alimony, no share of the business, no claim on the offshore holdings. She paused, looking at me with pity. "Do you understand what you are agreeing to?" Michael smirked. He leaned back in his chair, checking his watch. He was probably thinking about his lunch reservation. I stood up. My legs were shaking. Not from fear, but from the effort of holding back the truth. "I understand, Your Honor," I said, my voice trembling just enough to sell it. I just want it to be over. Michael is right. I can't handle the pressure. I don't understand the business. It's all over my head. I looked at Michael. I just want peace. Michael's eyes lit up. He nudged his lawyer. His lawyer stood up, holding the document. The Asset Division affidavit. If the plaintiff is willing, the lawyer said, smirking, we have the agreement ready. By signing this, Mr. Cole assumes sole ownership and sole liability for all assets and operations listed in Exhibit A, including the Vanguard accounts. 8. Sole liability. 2 beautiful words. I'll sign, I said. My lawyer, who was in on the plan, pretended to protest. Amanda, are you sure? This is reckless. 9. Give me the pen, I said. I walked to the table. I signed my name, Amanda Cole. Then the clerk handed the document to Michael. He didn't hesitate. He didn't read it. He just wanted to win. He wanted to own it all. He scribbled his signature with a flourish. Michael Evans. The judge stamped it. So ordered, Judge Raymond said. The assets are transferred to Mr. Cole. The divorce is finalized. Michael stood up, buttoning his jacket. He looked at me with triumph in his eyes. You're pathetic, Amanda, he whispered. You really are just a grunt. You walked away with nothing. I looked up at him, and for the first time in 3 years, the mask dropped. I stopped trembling. My posture shifted. I didn't look at the floor. I looked him dead in the eye with the cold, hard stare of a squad leader. I didn't want the money, Michael, I said. My voice wasn't soft anymore. It was steel. He frowned. What? I just needed you to admit it was yours. Michael looked confused. What are you talking about? The doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. It wasn't the bailiff. 6 agents entered. They wore body armor over their suits. On their chests, the gold badges caught the courtroom lights. Army C, I, D. At the lead was Sergeant Taylor. The room erupted. The judge banged her gavel. What is the meaning of this? Taylor walked past the bar, straight to Michael's table. He didn't look at the judge. He looked at Michael. Michael Evans. Taylor boomed. I am Special Agent Taylor, with the Department of the Army Criminal Investigation Division. Michael's face went pale. Army? I'm a civilian. You can't be here. You are a government contractor, Taylor said, and you just signed a sworn affidavit in a court of law claiming sole ownership of the Vanguard accounts? Taylor held up a warrant. We've traced $4.2 million in fraudulent wire transfers from Fort Campbell to those specific accounts. Up until 5 minutes ago, you could have argued your wife was involved, but you just legally claimed they are 100% yours. Michael looked at the document on the table. The ink was still wet. He looked at his lawyer. His lawyer was already backing away, closing his briefcase. There's a mistake, Michael stammered. He pointed at me. She did it. She handled the books. She's crazy. Taylor shook his head. The document says otherwise, Mr. Evans. You wanted the credit. You got it. Taylor nodded to his agents. Cuff him. They moved in, fast, efficient. They spun Michael around. The handcuffs clicked a sharp, mechanical sound that echoed in the silent room. Amanda, Michael screamed as they hauled him toward the door. Amanda, tell them. Tell them you helped. I stood there. I watched him struggle. I saw the fear in his eyes, the same fear he had tried to plant in me for years. I didn't say a word. I just watched. As they dragged him past me, Taylor stopped for a second. He looked at me and gave a single, subtle nod. Mission accomplished. The doors swung shut. The shouting faded into the hallway. The courtroom was silent. Judge Raymond looked at the empty defense table, then at me. She looked at the signed document. A slow realization crossed her face. You played the long game, Mrs. Cole, she said softly. Sergeant, I corrected gently. It's Sergeant Cole, Your Honor. I picked up my bag. It was light. I had no money from the marriage. I had no house. I had no car. But as I walked down the center aisle, my boots clicking on the floor, I felt richer than I had in years. I had my name back, 6 months later. The rental house was small, but the door was open. I sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the Tennessee hills. The air smelled like pine and rain. Michael was awaiting trial in a federal detention center. His lawyer had quit. The evidence from the affidavit was ironclad. He was looking at 20 years. I didn't testify at his bail hearing. I didn't need to. His signature did all the talking. I used my GI Bill to go back to school for forensic accounting. I figure I have a knack for finding things people want to hide. I also started a small support group on Thursday nights, Valor House. It meets in the community center's basement. It's for women veterans who feel like they're losing themselves in the civilian world. Tonight, a new woman walked in. She looked skittish. She flinched when the door closed. She wore long sleeves in the summer heat. I walked over to her. I saw the look in her eyes. Who thinks she's damaged goods? I held out my hand. I'm Amanda, I said, and I know exactly where you've been. She took my hand. Her grip was weak, but I held on tight. Welcome home, I said. She started to cry. I didn't tell her to stop. I just stood there, solid and steady. He said the Army broke me. He said I was just a grunt. He was wrong. The Army taught me that you don't break when you're hit. You reload. And I am just getting started.